Stargazers. This is Sandra coming to you from 7th House Astrology. Tonight I'm coming to you to provide ASMR to a little bit of an astrology. I just thought within the next couple of weeks kind of deal with an aspect when it comes to the astrology of dark night of the soul, which seems to be a term that personally I kind of discovered very recently, but from what I understand in my research, a lot of evidence has existed since, I think it was like a Spanish, I'd like to say priest or monk, I'd like to say about 15th century or so, he described something called dark night of the soul spiritually. And I think it's a little bit more than just a spiritual phenomenon. I think it's also kind of a psychological phenomenon. The reason why I'm covering it is that I feel like it doesn't just affect relationships. But I also just feel that, for me personally, I've been going through it. And for me, what instigated it was job loss and having to climb out and refigure out what the hell I'm gonna do with it, with my whole entire life. And coming up with ideas with that. A lot of sources state like the difference between dark night of the soul and depression, because a lot of the symptoms sound like depression, and I think it's a fair assessment. I think really the difference between the two, in my experience when I've had situational depression, it seems like with depression it's very clinical and it just seems like life just flatlines. Whereas with dark night of the soul, you understand that there's like a void, or you just kind of feel like there's a void around you. And sometimes that's the same with depression too. You can feel like you're in a void or you're in a hole and you're trying to climb out of it and it's really tricky to get out. I feel like with dark night of the soul though, you kind of understand that there's a way out, but how is kind of something that takes some time, and it's something that you have to figure out. Again, it's usually a lot of people who are into the spiritual aspects of it, they say it's a start of a good spiritual journey. I feel like personally when it comes to the ego and also to the soul, it's kind of a journey of where you're going. And I think for me, part of it has been redefining what I like and what makes me happy. And really, one of my current thoughts was how to make over my life so that it's more aligned to me and a little less aligned to what people want or what people like about me. I'm trying to gravitate towards people liking me. Again, people pleaser, Leo sun, Libra moon, big time people pleaser. And really try to just be a little more first house, or my kind of placating the sun in my first house, which is Aries territory, and just really kind of going into who I am, who is me, and what makes me happy. One thing you might see is I did redo my hair color. It's been a little while since I've done hair color with copper. I like it. But I think first thing before we begin, if you do identify with dark night of the soul, I mean anything can prompt it. Just like with depression, anything can prompt it. It could be a great sense of grief. For me personally, it was job loss. Sometimes it could be a major shift in your life that prompts it. So one thing I want to start off before I begin with the astrology of it is kind of knock some of the dust off if you are undergoing through a dark night of the soul. And also too, Mercury retrograde right now, conjunct, I didn't really realize until it started to happen, conjunct Mars right now. Seems like a lot of people are just a little bit short and a little defensive right now. So kind of create that nice little healing space. Let's get that back body. I feel like spiritually and oracally, when we start getting attacked, it seems like, and this is my feeling, it seems like that back body gets it the most. And back body is exactly what it sounds like. It's basically the aura, everything on your backside, on your back. It just seems like that energy comes right at you from the back, like kind of stabbing you in the back almost. Like a Ten of Sword energy when we refer to tarot here. Let's continue knocking some of that stuff out. Some of that agita as well. There's been a ton. This last week especially has been a disaster with just Mercury retrograde stuff. Plus Mercury retrograde's in a fire sign, Sagittarius. So it's like everyone's been having volatile tempers, and myself included. I'm not immune from it, but let's just knock all that stuff out. And today, I'm also thinking maybe doing some mouth sounds. We'll see how that goes. Since we're talking about a really deep subject, maybe that might be a little too funny. We'll see how that goes forth. So as I'm clearing this aura, I'm just kind of knocking the dust off like I did last week for Mercury retrograde. Kind of just, when it comes to dark night of the soul, the first aspect that I wanted to cover was really, a lot of sources mention Saturn and Mars. Particularly this week, Saturn or Mars being intercepted. So what I mean by that is, like, say that you look at your transits and say that you see Saturn outside your 12th house or Mars outside your 12th house. That's where dark night of the soul can be prompted. According to Times of India, Saturn is actually its native house. In Vedic astrology is the 12th house. And I think classically what's going on there is that Saturn originally was, before Neptune was discovered, classically Saturn was actually the ruler of Pisces for a while, along with Capricorn, which I thought was very interesting. And, going back to the 12th house, that's ruled by Pisces. So having Saturn hang around out there, or Mars, and I have a little bit of a shift with this one. I would also include if you either have Saturn or Mars in the 12th house, and like say there's another planet that's intercepting or conjunct with that planet, meaning there's another planet that's hanging around outside your Saturn placement or your Mars placement, good chance you're prompted into a dark night of the soul. And what's going on with me right now, my natal Mars, which is already in the 12th house, not a fun placement. Oh, not a fun placement. And in Cancer, so not a fun placement. It's a detrimental placement for sure. But with Mars, my natal Mars being in Cancer, in my 12th house, Jupiter is hanging right outside of it. And I'm feeling that right now with that. I feel like the dark night of the soul is like dealing with bigger picture, and particularly I could tell it's Jupiter because it's not just bigger picture, but bigger picture for the future. That seems to be the revamp. also the bigger themes of like, you need to make over your life type of thing. You know, I had that after I had a really disturbing dream one night. Actually, it wasn't disturbing, it was just upsetting. I had an upsetting dream that James Marsters found a perfect, beautiful girlfriend. And it was like, oh. And I love James Marsters, actor who portrayed Spike in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I mean, the dream in and of itself caused a massive amount of reflection, due to what I will mention here pretty soon. But I think the biggest one, and I've actually heard in dreams when that happens, it's mainly how you are changing while the dream is dealing with someone else changing. In this particular instance, someone who I love has a new perfect girlfriend. It's actually the psyche saying, actually, it's you who has the new, kind of like with the new perfect girlfriend, that's a change. You are the one who's going through something that's a change like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because first thing I did when I went in and listened and also asked, okay, like when it's 3 a.m. and here I am, I'm depressed. It's like, oh my God, what the hell, psyche? I started to, one thing I had looked up, and that's also backed up in my research, was that sometimes if you just ask the feeling, like, okay, sadness, what is it that we need to learn here? And when you specifically ask, what is it that we need to learn here, that's where some profound answers come up. And I think that one, I could just, again, very Jupiterian, hey, we need to make over our life. Because what if James Marsters does have this happen? You need to be able to be secure enough to let him be him and be his own self. But you also have to be secure enough to be you and manage changes effectively with that one. So, again, I would say anything hanging outside a Mars placement or Saturn placement, and particularly 12th house, or anything aspecting the 12th house, that's it. That's your figure. I feel like the reason for this is that part of Dark Night of the Soul is we're wrestling with, 12th house rules that of secrets. So I feel like with Saturn gets the sober planet, and we get very serious. And I think it's seriously considering what are deep secrets inside of us. And those secrets could be, like how to revamp my life, how to remodel my life, how to deal with the void, having to, admit we're in a void right now. And practically wrestling with the practical matters. Okay, here's where I'm going to try the mouth sounds. So wrestling with the practical matters of this. Mars, I feel, is the same with the 12th house, in the regard that Mars is like let's move forward, let's charge forward. And again, outside the 12th house, which is not a savory position for Mars, it's charging us to look deep within, which is also 12th house material. So we're looking at secrets, with, classically what's the 12th house, but also deep inside our psyches. I kind of feel like that's 12th house material, as well as deep inside our souls. It's like, whoa, which is, when you first encounter it, that's huge territory. Before I continue, I just want to see how you are feeling. So I just want to really rescan that aura there. actually, aside from a few places over here, there, actually, you're looking much better. So I'll just do a little clearing while I continue. Awesome. But yeah, we're prompted with Saturn to seriously consider things that are hidden. It's like our psyche, our soul, our secrets. Maybe the biggest secret, like for me personally, my life with working in my former employer, sucked. It wasn't optimal. There was a reason why I was fired. There's a reason why I was let go. There's a reason why there's this pattern that continues. And I think, again, kind of speaking along with Saturn, this pattern that's kind of continuing, again, that we're dealing with the karma, which is also ruled by Saturn. And so kind of deeply assessing our karma in this phase and how to fix that, which again is, karma's like, oh, that's daunting. It's very daunting. It's a huge task. Even though it was enlightening for me, again, that Jupiter position outside my Mars in the 12th house position, for me, even though it was enlightening, this whole, makeover of my life, it's still a huge thing. It's going to take a lot of time for me. I mean, I've started some things that are like surface, like the hair change. That's very surface. But as for everything else, that's going to take some time. And it's a major overhaul, for sure. But that's nature of Saturn right there. And also I feel like with Mars too, Mars kind of prompts a lot. That 12th house, 12th house is not easy either. I feel like I can see why it's ruled by Saturn. It's not easy. We're like completely tasked with dealing with our secrets, dealing with personal stuff, dealing with things, changing that personal landscape. And it's not an easy thing. It's really not, for sure. So I feel like with Mars, we're kind of, we feel compelled to do that. And sometimes I think that's where that dark void can come into play, is, it's like, really, right now? What the hell? And why now? And sometimes just what is. Sometimes I think it's just, like with me, I've taken jobs where it lasts a year, lasts 2 years, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, out of the blue, I'm fired. There's sometimes with grief can onset dark night of the soul. I lost my dad. There's a period where it's like reassessing just life. I think what a neighbor told me, reassessing like where the soul goes or what happens to the soul. That kind of is onset with grief. I felt like also just where the hell, I've faced this with my grandmother's dying. Where the hell is my life going? And wrestling with that too, wrestling with some very deep stuff in there. I'm going to continue to just make sure. I know I'm doing a lot of clearing out, a lot of getting rid of this, but I just want to make sure you guys are okay. And so far, a little bit right back here. And a little bit right here. But otherwise, you guys are looking pretty good. Okay. So, I think some things to kind of help with this aspect of dark night of the soul. Okay, I'm going to try a mouth sound again. I think the first that I came up to, both online, and then also I kind of felt like this this was divine timing. Long story short, with the library, I moved, didn't know if I could use the Denver Public Library. Turns out I can. Apparently, in Denver, in Colorado, you got a library card. You can use any library you want. But as I found this out and I was looking for books to check out, I found this particular book called I Don't Believe in Astrology. And ironically, the author does believe in astrology. Actually, she uses astrology in her practice every day. And this is by Deborah Silverman. And I actually started to dive into this because it's actually explaining astrology from a psychoanalytical point of view. She's a therapist, Deborah Silverman. She's a therapist. And she uses astrology with her clients in a therapeutic way, which I find ever since I started studying astrology a little more in depth in 2013. I actually found that, therapeutic astrology to be fascinating. I love that area. But even though she goes into mainly the sun, the rising, and Saturn's position, she actually kind of goes a little more in depth with the sun. And also, she had mentioned with the sun section, if you identify with other signs, some of the more in-depth things that could come up with the signs. But another thing that she also states within her book is mentioning the inner critic as being like gremlins. I actually found another source online where it's when you go through Dark Night of the Soul, you're not only going through the inner critic and the gremlins, but I feel like you're going through the gremlins with your emotional response, and it sucks because it's like you're just being kicked till you're dead from the inside out, if allowed, and it's just terrible. But what she mentions, little snippet here, is kind of take a look at your emotions. In fact, I'll go ahead and point out the page here. Oh, I don't have nails. Alright, I'll go ahead and point the page up here. So the page where she mentions the gremlins would be on. So she has like little side bars. I'll show you in just a moment. Like little side right in here. But it starts on page 34 to 35. A little sidebar there. And it's basically stating, it's like, look, take a look at how you are feeling. For Deborah Silverman, she also mentions, go ahead and feel what you're feeling. With Dark Night of the Soul, for me personally, Dark Night of the Soul, overwhelmed. It's been overwhelming since I lost my job in October. So it's like, go ahead and feel that and just let it go, let it go. You're going to feel what you're going to feel. If it's anger, which I've been in, lately, that's also been the case. Feel it out. But then also ask yourself, what do I have to learn? And I think the other source online had mentioned, okay, anger, so we're going through this right now. What's the lesson? What's the deeper lesson as to why we're feeling this? Or hey, overwhelm and fear. We're going through this. Okay, so we're going through this. Can't deny this. What's the deeper lesson that we need to learn here? And it's actually super helpful because you find that deeper lesson definitely gives you a little more of a purpose here. I'll go ahead and show this one more time. Awesome. But with that deeper purpose, like with overwhelm, it's, you're taking action, but you might need to take some inaction. Pause, reassess. Sometimes, especially with the job searches, and doing the math sound here, sometimes it's just pausing, reassessing, maybe giving it like 24 hours worth of thought, or maybe just sleeping on it and seeing how you feel the next day about the particular position that you were almost about. Like with me, it's like where my thumb's almost hovering with the apply now button, and it's just causing overwhelming amounts. So that overwhelm, that anxiety could be, hey, take a pause, see how you feel about it. There could be a reason why we're a little hesitant, or there could be a reason why we're feeling really anxious with that. With anger, sometimes it's boundaries. We need to set more boundaries. Mouth sound again. With boundaries, somebody's either transgressing it, or you need to set more of a boundary, or just feeling like you're in a void. Again, mouth sound. Sometimes if you're feeling in that void, it could just be, are you repeating, I've noticed personally myself, that void could be revealing that you're repeating same patterns, and you're not meant to repeat those same patterns. You have to revamp what you're following in your life. So with that said, I think those are kind of like listening to those lessons and listening to those inner lessons inside of us, I think is a good start. Getting a little bit like kind of driving out of that void with Dark Night of the Soul. If you are facing through this, first off, sorry to hear that, but you're not alone. A lot of people have been facing through this, and I think it's given a rise in popularity because of COVID, believe it or not, since times. But COVID, I think a lot of people have been feeling this existential crisis that sometimes I feel is Dark Night of the Soul. So you're not alone. This is happening. And just there's ways out of it. And I think, sometimes taking a look at that Saturn position, or like with me, my natal Mars position, outside, Jupiter's outside my natal Mars's position, not helpful. But, kind of getting some keys as to what your chart might be stating to you as well. And sometimes it's kind of interesting what your chart's stating could be what you're feeling already. Before I found out and before I thought about it, with Jupiter being right outside my natal Mars, I started to feel the effects of what seemed to be like Jupiter, the big widening and sometimes the very overwhelming aspects of Jupiter, that's for sure. Before I go, if you are dealing with Dark Night of the Soul, I just want to make sure you're a little more uplifted, that you're okay. If you're not, still, that, this is a heavy topic, make sure that you're uplifted. So let's see that aura again. I think we could do a couple more flicking and brushing off here. Maybe some clearing. Awesome. But otherwise, I think you guys are pretty clear. I think this would be a good time for a manifestation candle when it comes to Dark Night of the Soul, and really getting into all this stuff that we're feeling and seeing where we can go, like goal wise from here. So I'm gonna grab that candle and I'm gonna be right back. Okay, so here's our manifestation candle. And I feel with the manifestation candle, use it to your best advantage. If it's a navigation candle, so to speak. And I'm going to get my forest back there in the background. If it's like, a navigation candle, like kind of a North Star sort of guide candle, use it for that. You don't have to use it specifically for manifestation if you're not feeling it. And I could definitely tell, I understand with not feeling it. Just want to get some more sounds with this lid. I feel like it makes like the best sounds. And this is from Tuscany Candles. With our manifestation candle, or actually my guiding light candle, here is that. Go ahead and light it. So whatever helps you. I know for Dark Night of the Soul, there are times where I've had to plan. So it's like, okay, I need to make over my life. So then how exactly can I do that? And here we are. Maybe just taking this moment to just allow this light to be like a guiding star. And, how can we reorient out of this, void, this weird void, the stickiness, the stagnation that we're going through. And while you're just kind of doing that, just kind of, meditating on that, I'm just going to do a little tapping. And also giving you that light. Maybe it could be, like for me, in just reflecting on this, especially in the last couple of days, but also just even now, I'll share one of my guiding light principles. Maybe just doing things that I've been wanting to do for so long, but really never got a chance to do. Like maybe taking a travel up to, staycation travel up to Boulder. Finally seeing the Celestial Seasonings tours before it gets too nasty up there. Maybe just kind of bopping around Boulder a little bit. Seeing what sort of tea, I know they have like a world famous tea shop too. Or just even hit their walking trails. Do something free. But it could be something like that. It could be also, one other thing I've been thinking about, whether to go into herbalism, maybe to go into Reiki, and how. Be a part of natural healing. There have even been times where I've even thought, maybe I should just go into nursing, but I'm not sure about that one. But yeah, just like a different life direction, life course. And like I said, I'm almost being guided by Jupiter. 12 hours, so that's probably, Mars is Jupiter is conjunct my Mars position. So there's some really heavily big ideas in there. So you don't have to follow my lead if that seems overwhelming. Like if it's just Saturn, if it's, conjunct like Mercury or something, follow that lead. Maybe like with Mercury, it could be, communicating more, or doing something communicative, like a speech, or doing, I don't remember the name of the speech group, but like joining them or something like that. And whatever it is, as Dana Meyer states, and open air. Used to be what open air, it's now Indy 1023. It's all going to be okay, and I'm proud of you. I think he actually states that I'm proud of you, and it's all going to be okay. And I think that's something that's important to hear when you're going through dark night of the soul. So I'm going to go ahead, put this candle, manifestation candle, right here for now. Or the reflection and meditation candle. So stargazers, I do hope that this one was helpful. This is just like a part 1 in the series. Definitely stay tuned for the next couple weeks. We'll definitely be diving into more of Dark Night of the Soul. I hope this is therapeutic, that this was a little healing for you. And I do hope that if you're not dealing with Dark Night of the Soul and you're just looking for this for information, that's awesome. And I'm glad that you're not dealing with it. As I said, if you are, you're not alone. Not alone. And we will get through this all together. Hang in there. Above all, stargazers, stay well, stay strong. And between now and next week,